to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend just a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And I'm Ted Bannock, and I love talking about cards. And we're going to go on a ride, Grant. On today's episode, a Rohan-themed ride, if I can drop a spoiler. But first, we're going to let that patron list ride.
Yeah,
ride a bunch.
That's a whole bunch.
Yes.
People are thinking we're probably going to be doing Ride to Ruin, but that's not it.
That's not what we're
right. If for some reason you didn't see the title of the episode, it's a big surprise. So anyways, if you like what we do, if you hear us even remotely think we're just kind of okay, or you have a man crush on Ted, we would love for you to give a couple of bucks to the podcast to help us keep the lights on and acknowledge your man crush on Ted. I do all the time off air, but I have yet to do it on air for the whole world to see. But nonetheless, there are several people who have who help us keep the lights on here at the pod. And then there's several people who are also eligible for the swag. Swag cuts off at the end of May, so you have to sometime in May or before you have to be a $5 and up patron of the show to get the big swag. Everybody will get a small token of appreciation that we will give to everybody, but the big swag will be for those who are doing $5 and up in May. So I will try to read the names off in one fell breath here, and I will do it. How can I do it? I'm going to click randomly in my Patreon account to read the names, and it will be reverse alphabetical by the name that they signed up for, that they signed up in Patreon for the show. So, okay, you ready? Here we go. There is Vardane, Valentine, Tony, Shane, Sean, Scott, Russ, Robert, Reagan, Rachel, Phil, Peter, Niall, Dominic, Moritz, Mike, Micah, Matt, Lou, Kyle, Justin, Joshua, Joseph, Joe, Jason, James, Eric, Edmund, Dan, David, Daniel, Chris, Carl, Brandon, Anders, and Alex. Better than the last episode that we just recorded. I was able to do it all in one breath. So thank you to the newest patrons, and also thank you to those who have been around for a little bit. And keep your eye out in October for the swag. But enough about the patrons and the back end of the show. Let's talk about the front end of the show. And what people really tune in for is for us to talk about a card. Grant, what do you got? What do you got for us?
Well, if everybody wants to go to the Mountain of Fire and bring along a friendly Rohan hero, look no further than the 10 cost, 1 willpower, 3 attack, 2 defense, 4 hit points, Rohan Noble Warrior, Eomer. With the response, after Eomer commits to the quest, spend 1 resource from his pool to declare him as an attacker and resolve his attack against an enemy in the staging area.
Yes. Grant, why don't you get us started off? I think you like Leadership Eomer a lot. For some reason, I feel like we've talked about him. What's your take on Leadership Eomer?
Leadership Eomer, like done here, is amazing. They both attack into the staging area. The only drawback to Eomer is that it costs some of his leadership resource, so you have to really plan ahead. You've got to think, well, what am I using these resources for? Is the enemy in the staging area worthwhile killing now or killing in the combat phase? He's a great target for late adventurer. Because then if there's no enemies in the staging area and then one gets revealed after staging, you can play late adventurer and more than likely crush that enemy.
Right. Yeah.
But that's just a couple of pence worth of thoughts.
Couple of pence. Well, Ted, what is your 2 pence?
I've played him a couple of times, and his ability's neat. I think he's kind of like Dune here 2.0, right, with a very similar ability, but functions slightly differently, where he's still questing, but it costs you the resource. He is on leadership though, which is nice because then you have lots of resource acceleration to pay for his ability, right? You throw a Suitor Gondor on him, you're good to go. He's got lots of great cards to boost his attack, both in leadership. You have Dunedain Mark. I'm going to go ahead and say it, but he works really, really well with the guarded card Orcrest. Also a resource accelerating weapon, right? So it does like two things for him. And he's actually one of the few heroes where I will consider putting in guarded cards, because if you pull an enemy off of the guarded card, he can immediately deal with it. Or you can get to a place where if you build his attack high enough, you can then free up that guarded card for essentially only maybe paying that one resource to trigger his ability. I also like him in 3 Hunters decks, because then his willpower gets boosted because he gets that 1 willpower boost for each restricted attachment. You put 3 on him. Now he's up to 4 willpower. So now you really kind of get your bang for your buck, because you're upping his attack at the same time in its willpower. So now you really get an efficient or more efficient questing out of his ability, which is really neat.
Yeah, let me add that. Let me add to that point, Ted, because you know, as always, Ted, you bring up amazing points. Grant, not so much. No, I'm just kidding. Grant, I'm sorry. I feel like I've been picking on you tonight a little too much. So
don't worry
not
about
picking
it.
on you
By now.
Right.
I've been doing this for 4 years.
Yeah, I know, right? It's too long, right? No, but Ted, you're bringing up a really good point. But I also want to counter that with the idea of pseudo questing. And I know that you understand what pseudo questing is, but let me explain that for maybe somebody who is just getting Mountain of Fire or is a little less knowledgeable in the game. So I think one of the reasons why the designers didn't make his his willpower much higher than 1 is because he can attack into the staging area, as it says, and he can easily kill an enemy. And so if you're killing an enemy that has 3 threat, now you've eliminated that 3 threat, and you're adding an extra willpower beyond that. So in essence, you're questing, yes, you're just questing for 1, but then you're pseudo questing on top of that for another 3.
By reducing the threat in the staging area.
Reducing the threat in the staging area. And I think that is it's an important distinction, especially as you're trying to feel out what this hero can do. That, you know, that pseudo questing there, and especially like Grant said, if you can send him post staging, and we've said this about a lot of heroes and cards in the game about you know, post staging willpower modifications. You know, this is in essence that. So if you can do Late Adventurer, or I feel like there's another card that allows you to do that. There's the tactics card that reduces the number of cards you draw down to 0 if you pull an enemy out in the top 5.
Yeah,
you know, but
yeah.
There's a lot of wait no longer. There's a lot of ways to get him after, but you know, it's really easy to boost his attack. You give him the 1 ring and you give him strength and courage, and now he's attacking for 7 right out of the gate, as long as you have tactics in the deck, like you said, Orcrest. Like, it's just super easy to boost his attack, and I guess any other hero that you want attacking. But that then allows you to pseudo quest for a whole bunch. And when you play this guy solo, I think the biggest problem that you have if you're playing him in a solo deck is how to ready him. You know, so I know the Rohan Warhorse does that. Because if you're playing leadership, leadership doesn't have
Steed of
like
the
a ton.
North.
Yeah, it doesn't have a ton of readying, and then and then you have to play if you're playing strength and courage, and you have tactics. Of course you can run spirit in there, and you can run all the spirit. But I've always found that it's tricky to ready Eomer in kind of non-traditional ways. And so you're going to have to use, like Grant said, Steed of the North. So anyways, I wanted to make sure that I clarified that for the listeners, that maybe that's one of the reasons why his willpower is so low.
Well, Latin
Yeah,
fits
yeah,
in
he
with
was
his
more.
tactics counterpart.
Yeah, I don't. He can use Steed of the Mark to ready if you want to spend extra resource and have spirit.
Right.
I don't think he can have Steed of the North. There isn't Steed of the North Dunedain and Ranger only.
I thought it was just attached to a leadership character. I may be wrong.
Dunedain or Ranger hero.
Yeah,
and it's only when you engage an enemy too, which would be helpful because then you're engaging. But I think the trick with him,
generally speaking, if you kill an enemy, Rohan Warhorse works just as well.
Yes, it does.
Right, and that's kind of the primary thing you're going to put on him. But then again, it's restricted, and you only have 2 restricted slots. Or if you're playing,
4.
Right, if you're Golden Belt and the other contract, or the contract, but this guy is fun. But Ted, what were you gonna say?
Well, the trick with him is putting and keeping the enemies in the staging area. So there's a couple ways to put them there. Like we mentioned, guarded cards, and sometimes the scenarios spawn enemies. But you need to kind of either run a low threat deck or find a way to put enemies into the staging area or keep them there. So do you guys have thoughts on ways to do that?
Yeah, Ted. So my idea is running with Eomer. I think that Leadership Frodo is a great option because it gives you a card that's in Sphere. It gives them an extra resource, so you can you have the extra leadership resource, and you can keep him ready. And then I think that because both Frodo and Eomer leadership cards obviously require a resource, it's you almost have to run some sort of kind of standard resource acceleration. I prefer Steward of Gondor, and that would go on Eomer, but I also prefer the Arkenstone to go on to Frodo, because he's going to quest, and then he can then ready Eomer after he attacked, and so there's a lot of neat things.
You mean Necklace of Girion?
I do mean Necklace of Girion,
right?
The guarded one that gives you the resource and the two willpower. Okay. Right. Thank you for clarifying. This card talk, and I can't even get my cards straight.
Gotta talk about cards.
Yeah, right. The wrong cards apparently. But so that goes. He goes well with that, and then you can always pair him with Galadriel, and that seems like a good pairing if you're not looking for any particular theme in a deck. If Galadriel with her ring, and then that gives you 4 willpower that you can throw over to him and kill stuff. So yeah, I mean those are 2 options. I use this version of Eomer in a guarded card deck, which is a lot of fun with Tactics Bilbo and Frodo and just all sorts of guarded cards like you suggest, because you can just keep the enemies coming out, and it's just a lot of fun to play. So what about you, Grant, to Ted's question about who to pair leadership Eomer with?
Well, if you've seen our Saga campaign, either the one I've done with Ted or the one I've done with Mark, you'll know that I generally pair them with Eowyn and Erkenbrand. That gives us questing, combat, and defense. But if you're looking for ways of putting him putting enemies back into the staging area, then you could team them up with Fast Red or Pippin and another Hobbit hero to keep enemies in the staging area longer as well.
Yeah, that Fastred pushing him back and pushing enemies back into the staging area seems like a lot of fun. One of the things that I wanted to say to your point about hobbits and to mine is that there's also that hobbit sense where nobody makes attacks or defenses, or that nothing can attack or defend you. And
I think Hobbit sense only works if you have 3 hobbits. If all the heroes you
I think
control
you're
are
right.
hobbits.
See, I'm off my game.
Yeah.
I'm off my game today.
You do have Take No Notice, which has reduced the cost of Take No Notice by the number of hobbits
Right,
or
which then
radias,
increase
which would
the
increase
intimate cost.
the enemy's
right.
engagement check value
Right.
by 5.
So, but yeah,
And then add that to Pippin, there's a total of 7 if you're running 2 hobbits.
right. The go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I think. I was going to say, I think you guys are both on the right track. Pippin and Hobbit decks, I think, are great as a companion deck to run alongside him. Or you could run 2 other Hobbits, right? You could run Frodo and Pippin with Eomer and then Fast Red, certainly as well. And lore in general gives you a lot of access to tricks like that. Yeah, Take No Notice is really great because a companion deck could potentially that's running all Hobbits could play that for 0, as Grant said, and then really boost enemies so they just don't engage you. And Eomer just takes care of it.
And if you play with Spirit Mary, that you can lower your threat a lot to kind of avoid, because you want to use this version of Eomer to kill enemies in the staging area. So Spirit Mary really helps you out because you can lower threat and with the enemies coming out, and there's a lot of synergy there with that.
Yeah.
Now I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this. I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for saying this, but Spirit Pippin also could work.
Oh, because you're going to push him back into the. I forget if Spirit Pippin does it push him back or does it prevent them from making the engagement check?
It pushes them back. They come down and engage. You raise your threat by 3, and it returns them back.
It pushes them back in. I forget that.
It's a weird interaction. It will. So if they engage the player who has Spirit Pippin, you raise your threat by 3 and push it back, and then enemy can no longer engage you.
Right.
So if you're playing solo, that 100%. Well, it doesn't really work because you have to have all your heroes be hobbits. So, and you can't really give Eomer the hobbit trait.
Right.
But if you're playing 2-player, one person, it's kind of weird because they could push the enemy back, but then it could, depending on
if they're first or second player, all that stuff, right?
It could still engage the player who's playing Eomer based on their threat and the normal rules. So it can work, but again, you as long as the Eomer deck has low threat, which Galadriel, Leadership Frodo, and Spirit Mary all work to reduce your threat, are good strategies. So Fast Red too.
Right.
Like I say, I was going to get some flack for saying that, but I just had to point it out that it could possibly work.
Right. One of the things that I wanted to point out that we haven't talked about this much since the card was released, but this would be a great opportunity for Thorngill because a lot of Eomer's toys, like the Rohan Warhorse or Firefoot, are in tactics, and that bonus of 2. If you bring Thorngill out, some enemy. I feel like some heroes don't you're not going to Thorngill Pippin. I mean, you may, but of course you're going to be running the lore Pippin and not Spirit Pippin, and then so you don't. I mean, you may want to just for the research, but whatever. What I'm saying is, I think that both versions of Eomer lend themselves to playing Thorngill very nicely with each other because of their abilities are so different and would make the game even more fun. So
Yeah, no, he's not a bad target. It'll be, you got to kind of build. But if you're going to build a Rohan deck, and you can kind of build for that Rohan ally strategy, yeah, absolutely.
do the swords go on him? Hargrim and what's the other Rohan sword?
Well, there's that one in leadership that is plus
Guthwine,
attack.
right? Yeah, Guthwine.
Yeah, Guthwine works. Yeah, you have to exhaust Guthwine in order to attack with for 5. Right. Hargrim gives the bonus when you exhaust it to add the willpower to the attack for that attack.
Yeah.
So if there is a combination where you use Galadriel, Hargrim, and target with Nenya and target Eomer to boost his willpower to 5, and then trigger Guthwine to add that 5 to his attack stat, and then he's attacking for 8 into the staging area.
Oh, trigger Hargrim, but yes,
right.
Yeah, that does work.
Right, and then if you have strength and courage, the one ring on him, and now he's, attacking for three more. That's the thing. Like,
you could just skip all of these strategies that we're talking about and play the one ring and strength and courage, and first turn he attacks.
I know,
done. You'll kill most things.
And that's really, when I'm playing solo, that's really what I like to do with Eomer. I put the one ring on him, put strength and courage, and now he's attacking into the staging area for 7 and doing all that pseudo questing that I was talking about earlier in the show. I can't overstate how much fun that is too. Like, I have a playthrough where I played all the guarded cards, and again I was playing like somewhere out of sphere, so I was playing the Return of the King's Return, or is that what it is? The one that searches for the guard cards. Yeah, and I was pulling out all the guarded cards, and I was playing one of the Khazad-dûm cycles that just it's just a swarm. I think I was playing the Long Dark, where it's just like goblin after goblin, and they're wimpy goblins too. So it's just fun to just kill everything in the staging area. Like, I was just like killing things left and right, and it was just, with Bilbo out, Bilbo was carrying his weight because he was questing, and I don't know, it was just a ton of fun. So anyways, let's briefly talk about the artwork, and then we will move on to the rings. Grant, what do you think of Leadership Eomer's artwork?
Now, oddly enough, this artwork doesn't really capture what I like in a piece of artwork. I mean, it looks like Eomer's about to be hacked in half with that orc sword, and it was just like, I can understand where it's coming from. It's the battle at Helm's Deep, or at least that's what I was envisioning it to be, or the battle on Pelennor Fields, which is probably more likely given that it's from the Mountain of Fire box set. But it just, for me, I think Eomer should be standing proud over his enemies, not about to be cut in half.
Right. To that point, I think he's stabbing that orc, and the orc is just kind of flailing his sword. I think it's just a bad moment in the time, that it was captured. But I totally agree. Like, on glance, it looks like he is just about to get hacked. But the orc sword is broken and things like that. Ted, what's your take on this art?
It's pretty good. He's a pretty sharp looking, and it shows him in action, and it's got good coloring, and I think it fits him very well.
I prefer his tactics version because that's a little more regal and royal.
His tactics one is a little more showing the
princely
more
side of him. Yeah,
noble.
And I kind of agree with Grant that I'm not as much of a fan. I feel like this version of Eomer was inspired more by the movies. It looks more like Eomer from the movies than maybe the tactics.
Looks a little Carl Urban esque, maybe with the hair.
Yeah,
did he have like a ponytail in that movie?
I don't know if he had a ponytail, but
just FYI, in the full card image looks better
Okay,
than what they condensed down into the actual card. Ryan Vale actually did a great job of this. I'll see if I can send it to you guys so you can.
He didn't have a ponytail, but yeah, he had. It is. I mean, he's got long hair in his tactics one. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're. It's more. Carl Urban looking, I suppose, than his other one.
Well, let's ring this guy. For those people who are new to the show or may have forgotten, we have a highly scientific yet arbitrary system where we rank a card on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the one card to rule them all, and 10 is the card that we throw back into the fiery chasm from whence it was made. So, 10? What do you think, Eomer?
Yeah, I don't reach from too often. I think he's got kind of a very specific, a lot of heroes do, right? They have a very specific trick or role that they fill. However, it is a very fun mechanic to build around, and it works good for certain scenarios. So I'm gonna put him probably a little further down. I'm gonna put him at like a 6. Because his ability does cost a resource, and you have to build for that, even though you have access to it. So he's really fun, but he's not like crazy strong.
He's a blast to play.
But he's a blast to play.
So I'll follow that up because I can't handle my boy Eomer getting ditched by my boy Teddy. No, but I think when you build Eomer into a deck, yeah, he takes a little bit of building around because you need to boost his attack somehow to make him effective. You need to give him a little bit of resource acceleration, but I think he fits into a lot of different versions of a deck. So different versions of different decks. So he can go to a Rohan deck. He can go into these Hobbit decks that we're talking about. He can go into an Eagle deck. He can go into, a lot of different things. And I think he plays both well multiplayer and plays solo. Not that I'm the multiplayer guru, but I think that he does fit a lot of different play styles. But I have a lot of fun playing him solo, and for those reasons, I am going to give him a 3. And I also have to give a shout out to our patron Joe, who loves Rohan builds. So hopefully he agrees with me about this Rohan hero. So Grant, what do you think?
Well, Ted, I think you're on crack.
Fight!
6 rings. 6 rings, you're off your mind, mate. I'm giving him a 2 rings. Yes, you have to build for him, but when you're building a deck, I generally look at, rather than what deck I want to build, it's like, what heroes am I going to use? And generally speaking, if I'm running Eomer, he's the focal point of the deck. He's not a splash hero, so I build around Eomer. And he doesn't take all much work to build around. It's all the other cards that I need to use to supplement him take the time.
2.
So I'm giving him 2 rings.
Okay, well, there you have it, everybody. That's our show on Leadership Eomer, the card that Ted hates. And so, Grant, didn't he say he hated him? Yeah. Okay, anyways. So feel free to join us again as we talk about more cards from the game. Have a great day, everybody.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. Visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube. And there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.